Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 506 for the 1st of July 2018. Richard Saunders here with you. Still, as it happens, I'm still in the San Francisco Bay Area, enjoying a very balmy summer at the moment. Maybe I'll get to go home one day soon, who knows. Coming up on this week's show, I chat to author Mick West about his new book, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, a guide to helping friends, family and loved ones how to debunk conspiracy theories using facts, logic and respect. I'm lucky enough to have a pre-release copy of the book, which I'm working my way through at the moment, and it's fascinating stuff. The history of conspiracy theories, the reasoning people have to believe in conspiracy theories, plus some famous conspiracy theories are all covered in the book. Anyway, coming up at the top of the show, I chat to Mick West all about his latest publication. After that, we have some news about some program changes at the Australian Skeptics National Convention, with the good news being that Yvette SciBabe, who we interviewed only a couple of weeks ago on the Skeptic Zone, is coming to Australia. And then I chat to Dr Angela Mattke, who is an emergency physician and a good skeptic, coming to Sydney to give a talk at Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. Now, she's also involved with a Skep track at DragonCon. So we'll find out a little bit about that as well. A bit of an abbreviated show this week. Matters here in the United States of keeping me quite busy at the moment, so putting together the Skeptic Zone is a little trickier than normal, but I'm sure you'll enjoy these interviews coming up. Well, now it's time for me to run upstairs, have a slice of American pizza with American cheese. Not too bad. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Joining me now on the line all the way from Sacramento in California, it's the author Mick West. Hello, Mick.
Hello, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. It's good to chat with you. Now, we met each other a couple of weeks ago at Skeptical in Berkeley, California, and that was a very entertaining day for everybody, I'm sure. And I was very lucky. You gave me a copy of your upcoming book, and it's called, folks, Escaping the Rabbit Hole: How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic and Respect. Let's get to that soon, but many people might know you from the website Metabunk. And for those people who don't, what can you tell us about that?
Well, Metabunk is actually my second big website that I did. I started out doing a website called Contrail Science because a long time ago, about 10 years ago now, I got really interested in the chemtrail conspiracy theory. This was back when I was learning to fly and learning about things like aviation and aviation weather. And I started this website, Contrail Science. Just the idea was to try to debunk the chemtrail conspiracy theory. But 10 years later, I still haven't convinced everybody. But out of that grew Metabunk. People started bringing up other things on contrail science because, you know, if you start talking about one conspiracy theory, you often start talking about another one. So people will talk about chemtrails and then they would bring up 9/11. And so I needed a bigger forum that I could use to chat about things. And so Metabunk was born.
And what sort of things are regularly covered on Metabunk? It's not just chemtrails, of course.
No, it's not. It's a variety of things that I think you would characterize as alternative beliefs, and that would be things like conspiracy theories and pseudoscience and occasionally the paranormal, things like that, things that you obviously are very familiar with. There's a big focus, though, on conspiracy theories because of my background with the chemtrails, and then it moved on to the 9/11. But I also do a lot of UFO spotting. It's one of the more fun things to do because the chemtrail thing, a lot of that was based on the misidentification of aircraft that naturally carried over into identifying things like strange orbs and blobs and things flying around in the sky. So that's a lot of fun to do, like investigating UFOs.
Oh, it's so nice to know somebody out there is still investigating these UFOs and things. And just perusing your website, I noticed that you do things like take photographs and analyze the photographs to try to reveal the truth behind that. That must be very entertaining.
It is, yes, and my background is actually I'm a video game programmer. I worked on the Tony Hawk video games back a long time ago, like 20 years ago now. We started doing that. So I know a lot about pixels, basically, and how digital images work. So that's kind of a useful background to have when you're analyzing photographs of things like UFOs or supposed ghosts. You can take them into Photoshop and you can analyze them and adjust the levels and contrasts and whatnot. And it's kind of a fun little side thing. It's not really like the serious stuff like conspiracy theories, but it's an interesting thing to do.
Do you find there's a lot of interaction on that website? Do people send you things?
Yes, they do. We actually have a sub-forum called Skydentify, which is basically identifying things that are in the sky. And that, of course, grew out of the identifying supposed chemtrail planes. But people quite often will send me a photograph of something or a video of something and ask me to look at it. For example, a while ago, someone sent me a video that the Chilean Navy had shot of a supposed UFO that the Chilean government had not managed to figure out what it was. And so me and the boys on the Skydentify team, we looked at that in some detail and figured out exactly what it was. It was just a plane flying away.
I guess it must be... it must be quite fulfilling to do something like that. Or do you get the occasional one where you just have to say, we just can't unravel this, it's too vague?
Yeah. It's fun when you can figure out exactly what it was. Sometimes you can get the exact plane because you can track down the radar tracks. But a lot of the time, these things, you end up saying, well, it could be this, it could be that, or it could be a third thing, or it could be aliens.
Yeah.
So people take from that the last thing. They say, oh, it could be something, or it could be aliens. So they kind of jump on it as a 50-50 thing, when really what I'm saying is like this, there's like a 50% chance that it's a plane, there's a 49.999% chance that it's a bird, and there's a 0.00001% chance that it's some kind of alien or advanced technology of some sort.
And how often is that website updated or new information put up there?
Not as often as I would like, but I try to get new stuff up every week, but I've been very busy recently finishing off the book. So I'm planning to get more stuff up there as soon as possible. But the forums themselves are still pretty active. People post on there every day.
That's great. And where can people go to visit Metabunk? What's the website?
It's metabunk.org.
That's easy enough to remember. Now let's turn to the book, and I have right here in my hot little hands a copy of your book, or an advanced copy, I should say, which you gave me at Skeptical. I've been having a wonderful time reading. Not all the way through just yet, but the early chapters are quite interesting, and it's not bite-sized pieces of information exactly. It's more extensive than that. And let me ask you a few questions about it, because I noticed that you say in the early part of the book that the book is sort of more or less aimed at your friend. Now, tell me about your friend.
Well, your friend is a general term that I use for a person that you are trying to convince. Essentially trying to convince them that they're wrong if they are in fact actually wrong. So it would be somebody who believes in, say, the chemtrail conspiracy theory or the 9/11 conspiracy theory. And often this is somebody that you know. It could be someone in your family or someone, at your place of work, or someone who's a friend. And I struggled for a while with a name to give these people, like I would say, your opponent or the believer or the conspiracy theorist. And I just figured it would be much simpler to say what it most commonly is, which is just someone who's a friend. I mean, maybe they're just an acquaintance, but I think it's best to think of the person you're talking to as a friend that you are trying to help. So through the book, I just refer to the person that you are having the debate with, or the person you're trying to help, as your friend.
Yeah, and indeed you also make the point that your friend might even be yourself, if that's the person reading the book.
Indeed, yes. That's something like people who believe in conspiracy theories, they don't believe in all the conspiracy theories. So they could read the book regarding like conspiracy theories that they think are too extreme, like 9/11 truthers will probably do not believe that the Earth is flat. And that's one of the reasons I included extreme conspiracy theories like the flat Earth, even though it's not hugely popular. But it gives people perspective. Even if they believe in chemtrails, they don't believe in the flat Earth. And here is how you would debunk the flat Earth, and maybe some of that could apply to you. So maybe you want to check your own beliefs, validate, where you are drawing the line, what is the actual facts of the matter. And I think the book will help individuals as well as help other people.
I think that's a very good point you make, because I certainly have people I would call my friends, and some of those people are into various conspiracy theories. But it is a fascinating thing to think that, as you say, the flat earthers, the diehard flat earthers, may look at chemtrails and think, well, of course that's a conspiracy theory, of course they're just natural. Or the 9/11 truthers might then look at the flat earthers and say to the flat earthers, "You're crazy." It's fascinating, and I think it really also ties in quite well with the title of the book, "Escaping the Rabbit Hole." And I guess you make the point. It comes from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I think once you're down the rabbit hole, it can be very difficult to get out of.
Yeah, it can, and the modern usage of the rabbit hole actually comes from the movie The Matrix. And a lot of people kind of look at The Matrix, the movie, as a kind of a descriptor of the way the world is. That things are not as they seem. That there is a hidden reality behind the reality that is presented to us in the media, and the rabbit hole is what you discover when you kind of strip away this facade, or this supposed facade that's been put up by the mainstream media. But the rabbit hole is a very convoluted place. I talk a lot in the book about how people get sucked into the rabbit hole by watching videos. And what generally happens is that they will start watching one video on a particular topic, say chemtrails or 9/11, and then YouTube will kind of feed them another one, and then another and another and another, and they kind of get drawn in by this. It's almost like a drug. It's almost like once they start getting hooked on this information, they get deeper and deeper in, and the more they watch, the harder it is to get them out again.
Yeah, I think the title is quite apt. Now, folks, when you get your hands on a copy of this book, you can have a look at the classics, I guess you'd say, like 9/11. We have also the flat earthers mentioned in there. Chemtrails, of course, and that's really a classic of all conspiracy theories, and it's still going on today. But what do you think the psychology is behind some of these? Well, I won't say the conspiracy theories themselves, but the people who buy into them. Do you think they feel then that they are empowered because they've discovered some sort of hidden truth?
I do think so. When you talk to people, they talk about feeling special. One of the interviews in the book is with a guy called Steve, and he basically said that the conspiracy theory became his life, and it became his social life. He had a really good time at these 9/11 meetings where, as he said, there were lots of hot chicks there who also believed in 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And so it was a great way of meeting people. So it became, he could basically rejected the life that he had before, and he took on this new life, which was just the people who believed in 9/11. It's not really a cult, because a cult is usually centered around one charismatic person. It's kind of a shared belief system, but it becomes for them very much part of their identity.
Yeah, and you make a good point about the social aspect of it too. I mean, I guess that's why a lot of people come to something like Skeptics in the Pub around the world, because it's a great chance to interact with people of a similar mind.
Yeah, and it's actually a very similar type of thing when you look at it from their perspective. They think they're being very skeptical. They think they've discovered some truth about the universe, and it makes them feel special. And it's quite possible that a lot of skeptics actually have a similar psychological thing going on.
Yes.
People who debunk actually some of them enjoy pointing out mistakes. And I think, even if they're not conscious of it, skeptics and debunkers themselves might be doing the same thing. They're feeling special. And I think that points to a broader point, that these psychological reasons why people do things aren't really aberrations. They're not psychological problems in the sense that they're mentally ill. They're just ordinary people. And they've just found a different way of fulfilling these needs that we have. Like, we all want to feel special. I like feeling special. I'm sure you like feeling special too. And the conspiracy theorists have just been sucked into this rabbit hole that allows them to feel special in a certain way. And because they enjoy doing it, they keep doing it.
Of course, it's nice to think that you're on the inside of the information, or you've got the special information, or something other people don't know. And do you think that's why... And it doesn't just stop at people who are into conspiracy theories, but people who think they've found something often want other people to be involved too, like spreading the word, letting other people know. And I think that's common through many aspects of life.
Yeah, very much so. Like, people who are very evangelical about things like what type of computer they like. Like, if someone likes Apple a lot, they become evangelical promoters of a certain thing. Like, people enjoy sharing their knowledge with other people. And again, these are like psychological things that are common to everyone. Yeah, and one of the things I looked at was studies of conspiracy theorists, and are there actually psychological reasons? And it seemed like there are things where if you have a certain tendency, you're a bit more likely to become a conspiracy theorist, but it's not really that significant. Again, these are things that are shared by everybody. The just like the biases, like mental biases that people have, psychological biases like the confirmation bias. When you look for evidence for a belief, you only look for evidence that confirms it, and you don't look for evidence that refutes it. Unless you're a trained scientist or a trained skeptic, then most people will fall for these psychological biases. And the people who fall into conspiracy theories may be slightly more prone to this type of thing, but they might not. I think a lot of it is down to their environment and just what they were exposed to. It's kind of a nature not nurture type thing, or nurture not nature.
Yeah, well, it looks like to me you could write a whole extra chapter on this book about all those issues too. Well, a whole extra book. I mean, because there's so much, folks. There is so much when you think about conspiracy theories. Now, this book, as I said before, it's not just a little bite-sized look at a certain conspiracy theory and unraveling it. It's quite in-depth, really, going into psychology and the history. In fact, I found interesting the history of the term conspiracy theory itself, how the CIA became involved, things like popular culture, like the Men in Black movies. The book is called Escaping the Rabbit Hole, How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic and Respect. Now, that's going to be brought to us by Skyhorse Publishing. When can people order that, or when can people get that?
Well, you can pre-order it now on Amazon and various other places, and it will be released on September the 18th.
All right, folks, I can recommend the book. I'm enjoying it very much so far. I'll put a link to the pre-order in this week's show notes. Well, Mick, thank you very much for sparing some time to talk about metabunk and conspiracy theories. What's the next project?
Well, I'm going to get back onto Metabunk and start writing some more content. But I'm also going to write a sequel to the book. I'm thinking perhaps writing Tales from the Rabbit Hole, which is going to focus more on the individuals and their stories, people who are still down the rabbit hole and people who have escaped.
Excellent. Well, Mick West, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
From the Australian Skeptics, we hear that there are speaker changes at the 2018 Skepticon convention. As reported on the Australian Skeptics website, skeptics.com.au, there have been a couple of changes for the speaker lineup at the Australian Skeptics 34th National Convention in Sydney, October the 13th to the 14th. We are excited to announce that Yvette SciBabe d'Entremont is coming to Australia to share her experiences in fighting the forces of ignorance and pseudoscience, especially in the field of food, nutrition and, quote, wellness, end quote, with a background in forensics and toxicology, a sharp BS detector, and a big dose of humour. The often controversial campaigner and blogger has also taken on falsehoods in alternative medicine, the anti-vaccination movement, and the anti-GMO movement. We know that she will be a highly attractive and entertaining addition to the lineup. The sad news is that Sydney and Justine McElroy, the Sawbones podcast, have had to cancel their appearance at the 2018 convention due to unexpected family medical issues. The McElroys say that the issues are not life-threatening and do not directly involve either of them, but the situation does prevent them from making the journey. They send their deep apologies and say that they are really disappointed not to be part of the 2018 convention, but they do hope to come to Australia in the not-too-distant future. While we are likewise disappointed that the popular Sawbones couple will not be able to make it, and we hope to have them back at a future event. For more details about the upcoming convention, head to skeptics.com.au. Joining me now, just to say hello and a bit of information about her upcoming talk, it's Dr Angela Mattke. Hello.
Hi, Richard.
It's great to see you, and yes, thanks to the miracle of the internet, we are seeing each other. You're in Atlanta, Georgia. You don't get home too often, I don't think.
No, I really don't. Not as often as I'd like, but, duty calls.
It does indeed, and for Sydney listeners especially, Judy is bringing you all the way to Sydney, and you'll be talking at Skeptics in the Pub in July in Sydney. How exciting is that?
I can't wait. I'm looking so forward to this. This is actually sort of a special one for the Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. They've been kind enough to alter their usual meeting date so that I get to talk to them on July 12th, which is unusual for them. So I'm coming into town, and I really can't wait to see everyone.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Sydney folks, here's a special thing coming up indeed. Dr Angela Mattke, not only do you have a wealth of medical experience, but you have a wealth of skeptical experience by now, because you've been in the skepticism game for some years.
Just a few. We won't talk about how many, but yes, just a few. I have also now recently been appointed the assistant director of SkepTrack at DragonCon in Atlanta. And I've given talks to the Morty Skeptics in Melbourne and at the Skeptic Camp in Brisbane.
Yes, of course. I think it was a couple of years ago. I remember seeing you in Brisbane. I've seen you since then when you made a brief visit to Sydney. I'm thinking about a year ago. But it's good to know that you're coming back to give a talk. What can skeptics in the pub goers in Sydney expect to see?
Well, this is probably my favorite talk I've ever written. It talks about it's about the when the dogma of religion, which had been the guiding force behind medical treatments, meets up with the dogma of medicine. Because for many years, doctors did not use the scientific method. And once that began to be used, we developed modern medicine. However, it took an amazingly long time for that to apply.
Really?
Yes, the title of the talk is Dogma. It's a dogma eat dogma world.
That sounds good. Now tell me a little bit more about your work for DragonCon, because sadly I don't think I'll be able to make DragonCon this year in Atlanta. I haven't been for many years, in fact. But I'm glad after all these years it's still going strong.
Well, Richard, you're long overdue. We can't wait to have you back. Yes, it is going strong. And in fact, Margaret Downey has been amazing at getting our skeptic community more visible in the Atlanta community as part of the skeptic parade, part of the parade. DragonCon has a parade that marches through the streets of downtown Atlanta every Labor Day weekend. And if you haven't seen stormtroopers marching down the street in Atlanta, you have not lived, I'm just saying.
And I think one year you even dressed up as a crash test dummy to drive James Randi down the street.
I was indeed dressed as a crash test dummy. The costumes are so amazing. I can't even begin to tell you how amazing they are. It is the biggest event I think I've ever been to from a cosplay perspective. And in fact, I hardly cosplay at all because I'm so intimidated at the talent of the people there. One of my favorite costumes was costume that was from How to Train Your Dragon. A 13-year-old girl had decided that was something she loved, and she really wanted to do this costume. So she told her father, who took her to Michael's, which is a local craft store chain in America, and was able to purchase all of the equipment to manufacture the costume. She did not want any help. She did the entire thing all on her own. I had a detailed discussion with her aunt who told me all about it. And I think even though the costume was not of professional quality, it was so good for her level. I cannot wait to see what this young lady produces. It's amazing.
DragonCon is like that. I mean, I remember the 3 times I went. The dedication from the fans is stunning. And I was very lucky to go for 3 years in a row, but I must say the skeptical track, the Skep track at DragonCon was well attended every year I was there. It was a lot of fun, and it was also a great way to reach new people because people would simply come out or come in to the room out of curiosity.
Well, that's exactly how I became involved in skepticism. Derek Colanduno had this skeptic track that he had just created, and I happened to be there and saw the listing on the program, and I did not even realize I was a skeptic.
You know what? I think that's the first time we met because in my going back through my photographs of the time, I was looking back and there is you sitting in the audience.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, don't show those to anyone, please. But Derek Colanduno was so good about getting the audience engaged that and trying to get younger people engaged, that he actually had the person with the microphone go and ask questions of my son, who was in the audience and was about 11 or 12 at the time, and talk about how to keep young people engaged in science and skepticism. And that was a big moment for me because I loved having someone interested in what my son thought.
Well, that's a great story. Now, folks, here's the word, the 12th of July for Sydney Skeptics in the Pub, link in this week's show notes. And we're all looking forward to seeing you there, folks. If you're coming along, you can ask Dr Angela Mattke all about her adventures in promoting science and reason, especially at DragonCon. Well, Dr Angie, I look forward to seeing you very soon in a very few weeks in Sydney.
Thank you so much, Richard. I cannot wait to see you and everyone else from the Sydney Skeptics at the Skeptics in the Pub, July 12th.
Now here's a message from our friends in Victoria, the Morty Alex Skeptics in the Pub. Their next meetup is Thursday, the 3rd of July. When human beings are like drunk robots, driverless vehicles, ethics, and the future of transport. A talk by Dr. Mark Howard of Monash University. Mark works in the ethics of new technologies, AI and robotics, and applies his expertise to intelligent transport systems, ITS. Recent research reveals the radical implications of a driverless future on public safety, the environment, urban planning, and transport policy. Now, this presentation will start at 7:30 p.m. For more details, see the Morty Meetup website, links in this week's show notes. And the note says, why not join Mark and the rest of the group for dinner beforehand in Jack's Restaurant, located downstairs at the Morty Sporting Club. Dinner at 6:15 p.m. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Now, I look forward to seeing Sydney-siders at Sydney Skeptics in the Pub with Dr. Angie coming up on the 12th. And if you can't make Sydney Skeptics in the Pub on the 12th and you happen to be in New York on the 12th, don't forget the Northeast Conference of Science and Skepticism on from the 12th to the 15th in New York. And I was very lucky enough to be a speaker at last year's NES. What a wonderful time it was. And if you're in New York, you can see such wonderful people as James the Amazing Randy will be there. The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe crew, of course, they'll be there. Dr. Harriet Hall, George Harab, and I hear tell even Bill Nye. Oh, Michael Marshall as well. What a lineup it is, folks. What a lineup of great speakers. For more information, head to necss.org. And I wish that every success. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off once again from the Bay Area, San Francisco.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.